emphasize, any money that we get from sale of any of these will also go into our treasury and then into the Coolest Pet Contest vis-a-vis Tiger. So we're doing our part. We're a small club, but we're doing our part for the Coolest Pet Contest. Okay. And now I'd like to have a moment of silence because we all know what's going on in the Middle East. And Rafa, looks like it's about to go into the thing that a lot of people have been hoping it didn't. And oh well. And like I said, think about Vicky Lowry. Is there anybody else that we should mention that you know of? Anyone? Gifford? Oh, I did not know that. Here.
He was in the hospital. I talked to his sister-in-law today. He's home, but keep him in your prayers. It's been a long haul for him.
I have a minor issue on the way home from here. I got to stop at the TGH Healthplex. One of my inside cats that I've had for 3 years, never had a problem. I was petting it and decided to haul off, give me 3 sets of bites. And I ignored it for only a day, but at the end of the day, I knew I goofed and my arm swelled up and red and I'm on antibiotics. I was overnight there getting a drip and I got to stop by and convince them I don't have to go back in. And I think I'm okay. Minor thing, but as a cat person, I'm always surprised if the cat wants to bite me. Like, why do you bite me? I'm on your side. Anyhow. All right. We're going to start first with, we are here through a set of circumstances that really were not planned. It just happened today. We have both of the Townsends here. CL, we knew he was coming first for a day or so. He is here for the recertification process, precinct captains for the cycle that kind of transitions into the new FDP county representation and voting system. And at the last minute, Ione was able to come, and I've been asking her to come and speak for months. And, you know, trying to get Ione is difficult. There's multiple calls on her time. So we're lucky to have her here. And after she speaks, then Lisa McLean, who is our scheduled speaker for this month, she's the other candidate for public defender. And to my knowledge, I believe we heard from both Lisa and Rocky at our picnic. There is no Republican opposition, which was not expected. So that's good news. So regardless of who wins the nomination, it's going to be a Democrat. So that's really good news. All right. So now I'm going to give it to Ione Townsend, our chair, and she can do whatever she wants with the mic. Thank you, Ione.
Thank you, Reed. Let's hope it stays that way, Lisa, right? Because it's still, we have a ways to go before June 14th. So, oh, that's right. Because yours was in the middle of April. That's right. Oh, all right. That's great. So the public defender's office will stay in Democratic hands. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I could say a lot about of the Republican Party and whether or not they care about the little guy or not, but they don't. That's right. So it's good to see you all. I haven't seen you all since Christmas. I came to your Christmas party, which was somewhere else. But I haven't seen many of you since. Couldn't go to your picnic. I hope it was a success. And you always have such a good one. Such a good one. Anyway, so I want to talk to you about a couple of things. In case you haven't noticed, this is election year. Okay? It's a very important election. We always hear this is the most important election of your life. This one probably is. If we want to have more elections after this one, we got to make sure that a dictator does not become president. So it is important. And as a club, you all have a role. And there are a couple of roles that I see that you have, besides getting out, knocking on doors, talking to your neighbors and that type of thing. But one is, I think historically, correct me if I'm right or wrong, Donna, but I think you have worked with the East Hillsborough Women's Club to cover early voting at the Bruton Memorial Library. So we need you all to work with the East Hillsborough Women's Club and do that again. We will have slate cards to hand out, and so we need the library covered for that 2-week period. It is a full 2-week period. So if you would get together with the East Hillsborough Women's Club, Reed. Awesome. Awesome. See, you're way ahead of the game. Okay, good. So I know you guys have that in hand, so I'm going to leave that alone. The other thing we need to do, we need everybody to participate in phone banks. We are going to have phone banks all over the county every day, because we need to call all of our voters. It's part of our Get Out the Vote plan. We need to call voters until they go out and vote. Okay. And that's going to be our message to them. We stop calling when you go vote. Okay. So we need to keep reminding. I was going to say we need to bug our voters. We need to keep reminding our voters over and over and over again, 2 or 3 times a day, believe it or not, to get out and vote. And, people mean well, but life gets in the way, right? Life happens. Reed just got bit by a cat and has had to have some and has had to have some antibiotics, and life happens, and you never know when it's going to happen. We still are not 100% of the way with people signing back up for vote by mail. We're one of only a handful of counties that is over halfway there. There are very few counties that are halfway there. We're one of them, but we need to keep calling. Okay, so we need to keep calling. You can call now. You can call from home, and remind people to sign up for vote by mail. 9 out of 10 people have no idea that the Republican legislature removed everybody from the vote by mail rolls. And so when they hear from you, they're very happy to hear from you because they had no idea. They think their ballot is still coming. They have no idea that unless they sign up again, their ballot is not going to come in the mail. And by the time they figure it out, it may be too late to vote. Okay, so we need to get on those calls. We're almost done with the over 65, which is our largest group of folks who vote by mail. But then we have everybody under the age of 65 that we have to call. So those, we send around links to that phone bank all the time. If you could make 5 to 7 calls a day, every day, just 5 to 7 calls. And you can leave messages. Okay. It's okay to leave a message because it's a great message. Hey, this is Donna from the Democratic Party. I'm calling to let you know you have to sign up again for vote by mail. The legislature has taken everybody off and we have to sign up every 2 years. So if you're expecting your ballot, you can't get it unless you sign up again. This is how you do it. Okay, it's a very easy call. And when you do actually get somebody on the phone, they're delighted to hear about that, okay? Because they had no idea. And imagine that people don't pay attention to the legislature. Just us nerdy folks do that. So we need to keep on those phone calls, constantly on those phone calls. If you could take 5 a day, if you could just do 5 a day, you'd be surprised how quickly we could, if everybody did 5, how quickly we could get through the list. So that's something that we need to do. The library is something that we need to do. And then we need everybody during early vote and on election day to be calling voters who have not yet voted. Okay. So we need phone banks everywhere. Okay. So we're really planning on turning it on this year for Get Out the Vote. And we know when Democrats vote, Democrats win. So it's our job to get them to the polls. Okay. So I am done with my soapbox. You'll be hearing more from me. Reed comes to all the meetings, so he knows what's going on. He'll keep you informed. If you have any questions, just let me know. But we need an all-out effort to get our voters to the polls. Any questions for me? Walt?
Last night, I was kind of shocked when I saw the number of Democrats versus the number of Republicans. We used to have a much larger majority. We're down to about 10,000 different.
We're 10,500. And I will tell you, on April 1st, we had dropped down to 8,085. We're now back up to 10,500. So that is something else that has happened in the legislature. It's a mandatory list maintenance. All supervisors of elections are required now to do list maintenance every so often. And what that means is if you have not voted in the last 2 elections, you get moved to inactive status. So actually, Walt, we haven't lost those voters. They're still on the roll. They're just in inactive status. They're still registered. They're still eligible to vote. So one of the things that we're doing right now, we did a test last week of 1,000 of those people. Craig called me in November and said, I've had to do mandatory list maintenance. I moved 36,000 Democrats to inactive status. 17,000 Republicans, 24,000 NPA, something like those numbers. Clearly, the Democrats were the most. It just means that you have not voted in the last 2 elections, and so you've been moved to this other category called inactive. So there's active voters and inactive voters. What Walt is referring to are the active voters that are on the SOE website, okay? But there are 77,000 more Democrats totally than that shows on his site. Now, do we think all those people still live here in Hillsborough County? No. There's been a lot of movement, okay? That started happening with COVID, right? And then all the rent prices went up, housing prices went up, home insurance went up, car insurance went up. And our voters tend to move around a lot. They tend to respond to those economic pressures, right? And we have had a lot of movement within Democrats. We know that. We just don't know how many of those 77,000 or the 36,000 that got moved in November are still here. We did a test last week of 1,000. 70% of those people replied to us that they no longer live here. Okay? So what we need to do is to find out who is still living here and get them to sign up for vote by mail, right? Because they're warm voters. They're not hot voters. Who's a hot voter? Somebody who votes in every election, every primary, right? They're called super voters. Warm voters are people who are sporadic voters. They tend not to vote during gubernatorial elections, okay? And even though the gubernatorial election 18 months ago, almost 20 months ago now, was a disaster for Florida, and it was for us in Hillsborough. We lost 2 county commissioners. However, what was interesting is that our turnout was actually higher than our baseline for gubernatorial, but it wasn't enough to overcome the gubernatorial turnout.
Is there any danger of somebody who's ineligible, who's inactive becoming ineligible?
Yes, if they do not vote this time. Okay, so Radina asked, is there any chance of somebody who is inactive becoming removed from the rolls? Yes, if they don't vote in this next election, they get removed. And then they have to re-register all over again. Reed. Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yep, very important. Oh, they can't hear. Reed said, if you sign up for vote by mail, do you become active again? The answer is yes. So all those phone calls that we make to get people to sign up for vote by mail again, if they're inactive, it moves them back to active. CL. I have heard two things about that, CL, and I do need to check on that. I've heard yes, they do, and I've heard no, they don't. But we do believe that if somebody signs up for a Medicaid petition or the abortion petition, that they'll end up back on the rolls again. That's if they're still living here. That's correct. Yep. Yes.
Reason I ask this is that under the age of 30, a lot of our voters are telling us they are not going to show up for Joe Biden unless he changes course on what's going on with Israel. Palestine. Those voters need to hear that the Democratic Party is with them and not just completely ignore them. Taking a day when we are supposed to be calling to help Joe Biden to instead call the White House, which they've now limited their call center down to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, might be a great news breaking piece of information to let young people know the Democratic Party still has a place for you, even if this old idiot doesn't. Just a thought. Do we have any rules that limit us from doing that?
We're certainly not going to call him an old idiot. Okay. I'm not going to read. So the rules for a call center are pretty simple. They're always to be honest and to be pleasant, okay? And not to be rude, right? And if somebody is rude to you, just thank you very much. Have a great day and hang up, okay? But those are simply the rules. But certainly telling young people that the Democratic Party is still here for them, for marijuana, for women's rights, for the environment, okay? The Democratic Party is still here for them. So we have to talk to the young people about the issues that they care most about, okay? And actually, what's going on in the Middle East is not up there at the top. If we hear a lot about it, but it's not at the top. Other questions, other thoughts? So I will make sure that Reed has got all the contact information for the phone banks. If you would make 5 calls a day, that's 5 minutes, 5 minutes out of your day. And try to get through those, try to help us get through those lists. Okay.
I go to all the meetings. He takes care of the website. He's got the phone bank information on our website and the need for both health efforts. He's backing up Warren and
Yep. Okay, so the link for the phone bank is on the website. So I just want to say hi to George Petrick. George, how are you? George and I were phone buddies and email buddies back in 2022. So it's nice to see his name up there. And Lucy, good to see you, Lucy. Gwen, Bonnie and Michael. And this lady in the middle, I don't see her name. Oh, hey. All right, so that's all. Radina.
My phone bank, I was able to pick up a couple of volunteers.
Uh-huh.
So certainly this club could use a little more membership. When you make your phone call, you can tell them, hey, there's a group of people that you might want to come and check out.
So that's the other thing that Radina, is an important thing, message that Radina is giving. When you're talking to people on the phone, tell them about the local Democrats. Tell them about this group that meets here here at the bowling alley on the second Tuesday of every month. It's a good way to pick up volunteers and to get more people involved. All right. Thank you very much for letting me speak with you this evening. And Reed,
Yeah, thank you.
welcome.
All right. Thank you very much. Like I said, an unexpected opportunity and it's appreciated. And now our regularly scheduled speaker is Lisa McLean, who is one of the 2 Democrats who are running for the office. And Mr. Brancato has already been here. I believe it was our March meeting. And now it's Lisa's turn. And I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I guess I will stand. So I have noticed something about myself since I began this journey about 1.5 years ago, is that I'm primarily an advocate for others. It's very difficult for me to talk about myself. So I'm powering through that. And I want to let you know a little bit something about me so that y'all can make a well-reasoned decision. I know it's been very difficult for the party to have 2 Democratic candidates running for this position. I get it. But again, you should make a well-informed decision. So here we go. I was born down south in Hollywood, Florida. Came up here when I was 10 years old. So I'm a local gal. I went to high school here. I went to college here at USF. I went to Stetson Law School. I started my career as an assistant state attorney. So I was on the other side for a while. And I was very fortunate to survive a very difficult election. I loved my boss, even though he was a Republican. He was not reelected. Harry Coe won that election, and I didn't want to work for Harry Coe, despite the fact that he was a Democrat. I had real concerns about how that office would be run. So what I did was I picked up the phone and I called Julie Holt. Julie hadn't started as the public defender. That was actually the time that she was transitioning into that office to begin her very first term in 1993. So I pretty much literally put my personal items in a cart. That's when both those offices were in the same building, and walked down to the other end of the building and started on Julie's very first day at the public defender's office. Within a year, I was a division chief there. So the great thing about that for me is it gave me the opportunity to participate in that transition. The previous public defender had been there for a very long time, and that office had a lot of issues. I can tell you that as a prosecutor, they would schedule depositions and then not show up. There were people that were assigned to my division. When I was in felony, I was there for 4 months before I went to work for Julie. There were people in that division I literally never saw in the courtroom, and we go to court every day. So Julie brought some very positive change to that office, and I was lucky to get to participate in that formulation and implementation of positive change there. So I did that for 4 years, and then I went into private practice. And then I decided after I had my first son that I needed a little bit of break from the grind of trying to make a buck and waiting for the phone to ring. So I went back to public service, but I worked for statewide prosecution, which is a kind of cool thing that we have here in Florida that probably doesn't exist in most other states. It's kind of a hybrid between our local state attorney and federal work. They do multi-circuit prosecution. So it tends to be bigger cases, bad guys that are doing things all over the state of Florida, not just in one county. They did a lot of white collar, a lot of racketeering cases. So it gave the lawyers a chance to be more cerebral, to have time to spend on cases, to not be jockeying hundreds of files every day, which is what happens at both the state attorney's office and the public defender's office. It can be very challenging. But I left there after some time and actually worked my way up in that office very quickly and was a bureau chief for the entire West Florida bureau, and had to interact with Tallahassee a lot and do administrative type stuff. I then went back into criminal defense, private practice, and opened my own firm in 2006. And that's where I've essentially been. Although I continue to do, and I was just talking to Drew about this before the meeting started, I continue to do indigent defense work. And that's what the public defender's office does. I know that I'm talking to a smart group of people, so I don't need to talk about the basics, but that's what they do. They represent individuals that can't afford to hire a private lawyer. So I still do that and have continued to do that in both state and federal court because that's where my heart is at. I think I told a group earlier this month that it was very challenging for me when I first went into private practice to charge people money for what I did. It just is, I was so used to, I have the heart of a public defender. It took me a long time, and I was actually very fortunate to hire an assistant who was actually one of my former clients who could not find a job anywhere else because he was a convicted felon. And I brought him into my office, and because he adores me, he really, really helped me recognize my worth and start charging decent fees to clients, which was really nice. It gave me the ability to put my kids through college and take care of some other things that, I might not have been able to do to the extent that I did if I'd continued in total 100% public service. So when Ms. Holt decided to retire, I thought that it was time to consider more positive change in that office. 32 years of doing things kind of the same way is not always the best way to do things. If you can't bring a fresh perspective to an office and recognize that progress often means change, then I think that things become stagnant. And I have some great ideas for things that I'd like to do in that office. Again, I was talking to Drew earlier about bringing AI to the office, and not because we're trying to be fancy technologically. It's not about that. It's about the fact that these young lawyers, many of whom knew when they were teenagers that they wanted to be public defenders. These are young people that this is where their heart is. They recognize this isn't a job, it's a mission. And that needs to be respected and appreciated by the person in charge. And these young people have a caseload that's just extraordinary. I don't think that we can even really wrap our head around what that looks like. I'll give you an example. When I was there as a division chiefs have a lot of jobs to do. They're not just handling their own caseload, and it's a caseload made up of the most serious of the cases that might be in your particular division, but you're also supervising 3 or 4, depending on how big your division is, 3 or 4 young lawyers that really don't know what they don't know. I mean, honestly, you say, well, you need to file a motion to suppress the identification in that case. And they're like, eh? Because they have no idea. So that's your job. And I love doing that. That's a mentoring thing. That's a teaching thing. So when I was there, I had probably on average about 50 cases. The division chiefs now at the office have over 200 cases. These are not line attorneys. These are chiefs that have, again, way more stuff to do every day than litigate their own cases and take care of those clients that are charged with very serious crimes and looking at a lot of time in prison, usually. So AI is about trying to lessen the burden on these young lawyers that have hundreds and hundreds of people that are depending on them. AI can, and there's only one other office in the state of Florida, or there's only one office. Let me rephrase that, because right now this isn't happening in Hillsborough County. It's down south in Miami that is on a trial basis using AI to do things like review body cam video. Body cam video is an awesome development in the defense of criminal cases. Unfortunately, the cops have kind of figured out how to skirt some of the issues that we were able to take advantage of to show that they might have been prejudiced against the client, that they might have made a bad legal decision. So they've learned to kind of turn off the audio when they're talking about things they shouldn't be talking about. But still, body cam is very valuable to both the state and the defense, frankly. So, but it is time consuming like you would not believe. You could have say 6 cops show up to a scene. They've each got body cam on that lasts an hour. You're talking about 6 hours of review of body cam. No one has it's an unreasonable burden. And at this point, the office has paralegals and interns and some other folks that help with that. But that is something that AI could do for us, that AI would be able to identify, this is where you need to be looking at this video. This is where they turn off the audio. So, don't watch this portion because, there's nothing going on. So it's a huge time saver. And it can also generate motions that, if y'all have read, sometimes that can be a little iffy because sometimes it writes motions and cites cases that don't exist. So but it's a starting point. Okay. It's a starting point to help those young lawyers have that stuff that they can then, it's a shortcut, right? You then look at that motion, you determine for yourself whether or not the stuff that you really need is in there, whether or not you site check all of those cases. So that I think is a really, really important thing to do. What else? There was a public defender in Pinellas County, so just one circuit over from us. His name was Bob Dillinger. Really, really great guy. He recently passed right after he retired, which I hate to see when that happens so often to people. He got a federal grant to buy a bus that he was able to equip with medical, dental, educational items that they would then drive around to underserved communities. Now, a lot of people might say that doesn't sound like the job of a public defender, but if you are not interacting with your community to know what's important to the people that are out there and to know why people are often making the bad decisions that land them in jail, if you're not listening, it's one of the things that a good friend of mine says all the time: seek first to understand, right? So I think that's outside the box thinking. That's something that isn't being done now, that wasn't done anywhere else other than in Pinellas County. And what a great thing that would be for the community to bring that. We'll name it the Julianne Holt, compassion bus. Okay. I am all about Julie's legacy. There is nothing about my campaign that doesn't respect the work that she's done. But, again, after 30-something years, it's probably a good idea to bring someone in there that's willing to look at everything from top to bottom, make sure that all of the money is being spent appropriately, and keep the things that are working and change the things that are not working. That's not in any way meant to disparage the good work that Julie has done for the last 30-something years. There's also a concern that I have from being in the courtroom every day and watching the public defenders work. And some of you may not realize that how that works is there are probably 7 or 8, I'd have to count on my fingers, letter divisions where there are 4 or 5 public defenders and 4 or 5 state attorneys assigned to that division, and that's where they practice. They don't float around. That's where they're assigned. They get moved occasionally because it's a good idea to get a different perspective on the law, interact with different judges and different state attorneys. But when I'm there, and I have cases in all of the divisions. So when I have an opportunity to observe things, I see what I perceive to be, they're worn out. And you can imagine why they would be, they're worn out. I mean, they have hundreds and hundreds of cases. And I am not convinced that the office as a whole right now is doing everything it can to assist in the mental health of those young people. I can't begin to tell you, because I remember, even though it was 30 years ago, what it's like to be a young public defender who knows that you don't know everything there is to know and goes to introduce yourself to a client who thinks that you are a public pretender. That's what they call you. Not all of them, but enough of them that it can really get to you after a while, because they don't think you're a real lawyer. Lots of times the judges don't really, I've seen some great judges that go out of their way to say great things about the public defender and make sure that clients understand what they're getting for free. But there's many other judges that don't. And so you're dealing with this, this idea of, my client doesn't respect me, doesn't appreciate the work I'm doing, thinks I'm not a real lawyer. And that's hard. That's hard. And it needs to be understood and appreciated. And we need to do something to make it better. One of the things that I've already looked into, I happened to be at a League of Women Voters function at the Glazer JCC on Howard a couple of months ago. And it turns out that I know the young lady who is the director of like gym memberships, because they do so many other things there, but she's the director of gym memberships. And I went and met with her and she took me around to meet the bigwigs that happened to be there that day. And I said, hey, why can't employees of the public defender's office have a greatly reduced membership fee to be able to work out? Because I think we all know that if we don't move our bodies, that affects our minds. And they have already agreed with me that that is something that they would be willing to do. In fact, they're already doing it for TPD, which is interesting because TPD actually has their own gym in their building on Franklin. But a lot of TPD officers also work out at the JCC. So I don't know if you've ever been there, but it is a phenomenal place to spend time and to work out. It looks like a country club in there. They have great equipment. They have great classes. They're open great hours that would allow these young lawyers to get there, to go before, to go after, to go at lunch. They have, because they have great shower facilities, all those kinds of things. And that may not seem like a big deal to you, but trust me when I tell you that it is a big deal to these young lawyers that feel so downtrodden, and they need to get out and they need to understand that the person in charge cares about what's going on with them. It's often brought up that there is this thing at actually all state agencies have a program called the Employees Assistance Program. We call it EAP for short. And that is a program that allows employees of the state to go to have like, I don't know, I think it's like 5 free counseling sessions. The problem with that I perceive is that, you've got young people who maybe don't want anyone in their workplace to know that these are the things they're seeking out. It's like so many things you hear about veterans that, they will tell you, hey, I just didn't feel comfortable when I was active seeking any kind of treatment because I thought it would affect my ability to advance in the military or, whatever it might be. So I really think that there needs to be a recognition that happy lawyers make for happy clients, right? And they make good things happen for happy clients. And that's really what the bottom line is being able to truly and happily represent the client. What else? Yeah, CL. Yeah. Budgets. Yeah.
State, the whole federal state.
Well, so historically, it's primarily state money. It's a state budget that gets approved by the legislature. But historically, there's also been a county aspect of that. But the majority of the money comes from the state, and it's a budget that is approved. And it's something that frankly, Julie has been really good at over the years. She has been able to, and she's quite proud of this because she tells me all the time that the starting salary for new public defenders now is going to be $70,000. That's a pretty good number. It's not everything to a young person that graduates with several $100,000 in debt, depending on where they went to law school. And so many of them do graduate with that kind of debt, especially the kids that gravitate towards the public defender's office. They're not typically, the blue bloods that had, that their entire family's always been lawyers and judges and all of that other stuff. I mean, these are, again, kids that a lot of them come from working class backgrounds. that wanted to make great things happen, that wanted to make a difference in people's lives. So the budget is interesting because it's broken into different segments. So say that, you know, you get the $15 million. Well, it's not $15 million that you can spend on salaries. It's $15 million. It has to be divided, you know, amongst salaries and hardware, for lack of a better term, like computers and desks and cars, because there are cars at the public defender's office that can be, you know, that are used both by, I want to say, investigators primarily. Julie has a car, Rocky has a car, you know, things like that. But again, that's something that I think we need to look at, because one of the things that's been raised with me, and this was interesting, and I was actually kind of shocked to hear this, that there are young people that live in the downtown area, that they live there, even though it's expensive, because it means they don't have to buy a car because they can't afford car insurance. The problem with that for them is that they need to get to the jail to visit their clients, because that's really important. That's something that Julie has always made a big deal out of. And she's absolutely right about the fact that, you know, we need to be visiting those clients regularly, so that, because communication is everything. That's why my firm gets hired a lot when people have other lawyers, is because they'll be like, okay, well, you know, I paid this guy $5,000 and I haven't talked to him in 6 weeks, you know? So those kinds of things. So they're discrete sections of the budget for that kind of stuff. Yeah.
The caseload in relation to the staff.
Yeah.
Implies to me that there's a underfunding of the staff relative to the base.
So there's a couple of things going on there. First of all, the public defender's office, just like the state attorney's office, is performance-based budgeting. Okay, when Julie goes to Tallahassee to justify the budget that she needs, she's got to be able to show that it's because we have this many cases. So it really is based on that to some extent. If the other thing that's going on there, and again, this is something that I see, and it's out there and it's statistical, and this is not just me talking about it. Anybody that works in the courthouse will tell you this. It's been extremely difficult for that office to keep their lawyers. And it's not just about money. It's about a lot of other things, and we don't really need to get into that because that's not why I'm here. But there are a lot of positions that are open. So sometimes, you know, you find yourself shifting things because you don't want to, because you have that open position and you can't fill it. You don't want that to affect your bottom line the next year that you go to Tallahassee and you're trying to work on your budget. Yes, always, because it's law and order, right? And it's much easier to sell law and order than it is defense of the accused. But that's gotten a lot better as far as salaries are concerned anyway. I can't really speak to the rest of the budget because it's not something I'm familiar with as far as how much money the state attorney's office has. I'm talking about Hillsborough County right now, okay? Because I don't know enough to address anything other than Hillsborough, but I can tell you that I know that the last legislative session where Julie worked very diligently to get that number up to 70, that she actually had help from Susie Lopez's office, because they went in together and tried to keep that money pretty equal. Because another thing that happens, and I've seen this because I've been here for 34 years, is there's an amazing amount of flip-flop between those two offices. You know, yeah, and that's because, first of all, we're advocates, and whether we're advocating for a victim as a prosecutor, or it's about zeal, right? It's about zeal, and it's about wanting to be a litigator. There are people that work at the state attorney's office, or public defender's office, will tell you that despite the low salary, there's no place else that they would rather be. They don't want to be in an office every day. They want to be in that courtroom. They want to be interacting with the citizenry, right? So they're willing to take that cut. And when many of them leave, they don't necessarily go to these silk stocking law firms where they're immediately going to be making $150,000 or $200,000 because they, yeah, white shoe. Because they want it, they want to stay, they want to be in the courtrooms because it's fun. Yeah.
Ideas.
Yeah.
About bringing in some new approaches.
Hmm.
Using AI and taking.
Yeah.
Buses to.
Yeah.
Less underserved communities. In the context of the political environment that Florida has become, do you believe that there will be adequate funding to enhance the way that the public defender's office is?
So I think to a great extent that funding, a good portion of that funding is already there. It's about allocation. So I mean, that's what we're really talking about is allocation.
Who gets to
All-
decide?
Well, to a large extent, the public defender decides that, although again, they're within, certain pots of money. But, you've got to make decisions about where you think that money needs to go. And when I was talking about the bus, again, what I mentioned was that Dillinger went and got a grant for that. Okay. Because there are people out there and agencies and organizations and 501c3s and these other places that are interested in making those kinds of things happen. You have to find them and you have to have somebody on your staff that can write that grant. Yeah.
That's the importance.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, that's something that I think, something that I've noticed about myself, even though I've been doing this for over 30 years and some days, you can become very cynical after a lot of years. You can become cynical after you've done anything, right? For a bunch of years. Right, right. But for whatever reason, I have maintained a level of idealism that surprises me. And I'm not, until somebody tells me no to my face, I'm going to ask the question. It's one of the things that I learned in working for a guy named Rick Escobar, who is probably one of the top criminal defense lawyers in Tampa. That's the firm that tried the movie theater shooting case where he walked the ex-cop. I'm going to wrap it up. He told me, I thought I had a great deal on a case, and I went back and was talking to him about it when he was my boss, and he's like, go back and ask for blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what? I mean, this is a good deal. He's like, Lisa, go back and get a great deal, because if you don't ask for something, you're not going to get it. And so that's how I feel about making those things happen, about implementing ideas is, first of all, you got to have them. And then secondly, you've got to have the guts to ask, because the only thing that can happen is that you're told no. Okay. But if you don't ask, you don't get. So I guess that's it. I mean, I really, sort of my general overall thing is that collaboration, communication, those things are really, really important. And, frankly, I think we all have a preference for who we think the state attorney should be in this circuit. But at the end of the day, based on the time that I've spent here and the years that I've spent here, excellent. I have the ability to work with whatever person ends up in that office. And that's what matters. It's your ability to communicate and work, whether you're working across the aisle with a Republican, or you have the honor of working with Andrew Warren. So yeah, I think that's, that's how we all feel about that. And I could go on forever and ever and ever talking about the things that happened to him. But I'm excited about the opportunity to get back into full-time public service. And, disagreement is the oxygen of democracy, right? We're not always all going to be on the same page. So, if your heart's in it and you're doing it for the right reason, that's something that I think we all can get behind. So I would appreciate your support. And I respect the fact that you've allowed us both to come and speak to you so that you all can make a good decision about who you're going to vote for on August 20th, which, by the way, let me remind you, I know we mentioned this at the party or the barbecue. But not only is this race over on August 20th for us, but it is an open primary, which means that you can talk to your friends, because I'm assuming you have friends that are registered as things other than Democrats. You can give them advice about who they should vote for, because we will be on every single ballot that anybody sees when they come to vote on August 20th. I think early voting starts on August 5. So get out there and vote early. I always do that. I love early voting. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think Craig Latimer is the bomb, and I'm really sad that somebody decided to jump into that race, but he has such great support, not just among Democrats, but also Republicans. So I'm pretty sure we're safe in that regard. But again, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Yeah. I did. He is, I'm actually going to be there if I can make it. He is going to be at Joyce's house. I think a lot of you know Joyce. Her last name escapes me right now. On Thursday, she lives in Apollo Beach. She called me earlier today or yesterday to double check to see if I was going to be there. Yeah, she's making the rounds. So that'll be a great evening. There's a few other things going on. The Equality Social is also that night. They meet at the Corner Club, on Sly. That's a good group of folks. It's not just one caucus, it's a bunch of caucuses. I'm not sure who's speaking at that particular meeting, but that's also on Thursday. But yeah, get out and support Craig and give him money. All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Okay, we're going to now quickly do our normal officer report, which takes 2 minutes, and then we're going to give the mic to CL and Rudina, whatever they want. But
I sent a text to Craig about that question that was posed to Ione that she didn't know the answer to. I said, if an inactive voter fills out a petition like the reproductive rights petition, does that move them into the active status? And he said, yes.
all right, I think it goes to you now.
No worries. Yes, and I will try to move as quickly as possible because I know that you've already had a long meeting. So let me see if I can get that to show full. Yeah. Okay, let me, if I close, see if we can get my whole thing up. Okay. Well,
We are recording, right?
yes.
Good, thank you.
Whoops. Well,
Face the wrap, Chris.
hello, everybody. I see that it's cutting off the screen a little bit, so you'll use your imagination for what the words on the opposite side say. Hi, my name is Brooke Ward. I am the senior Florida organizer with Food and Water Watch, and we're part of a national organization that works to fight corporations that put profits before people. Here in Florida, we've been leading on the work locally and statewide on pushing back against utility rate hikes, which we have two utilities, Duke and Tampa Electric, who are asking to raise rates again this year. So today I'm going to demystify this process a little bit and then talk about what's happening soon, how we can get involved. So we'll talk quickly about the utility bill problem. Then we'll go into what goes into a rate. A lot of us pay these bills, but we have no idea what all those different line items mean. So we'll talk about how to read our bill, the energy burden and why this is a major justice issue, and what we can do. And if we have any time for questions and answers, then we'll go ahead and do that. So the utility bill problem, what we have been seeing year after year is that bills keep rising. Tampa Electric customers have seen a 62% rise in electricity bills in just 4 years. And most of that is because 1/3 or more of your bill is made up for the cost of fuel. And fossil fuels are really volatile, especially when we have international conflicts and other things that are making the market not predictable. And here in Florida, every single dollar that they pay for fuel, they being the utility company, we pay for in our bills. It's a direct pass through. And so that's one of the biggest issues is not only are utilities passing on the cost of fuel, They're also passing on the cost of executive compensation, of new infrastructure investments, of the money that goes to shareholders. And so a lot of what ends up being the basis of this problem is that rates keep going up because these corporations, for-profit corporations, want to make more money. In Florida, I know, surprise. In Florida, we have monopoly utility service areas, which means you don't have a choice in who you get your energy from. Even if you have solar on your house, you still have to pay to be part of the grid. And so this is not a fair market. And these utilities are not here to serve us directly. Instead, they're mainly here to make money for shareholders. And we get energy along the way. But the biggest issue with how these rate hikes are allowed to keep happening is that there is a body called the Public Service Commission that decides whether or not these rates can be changed. And so, first of all, they're not accountable to us directly. They're appointed by the governor, which we know when we don't have accountability, it's very hard to influence a body to do something. They oversee all of the Florida utilities. And so they are the ones making the decisions. Under their purview, they approved the largest rate hike in Florida history for Florida Power and Light just a few years ago, which we were able to challenge legally, where they need to at least justify why they're going to provide these rate hikes. But the hikes still stand. We're still paying higher electricity bills. And so the Public Service Commission, especially under Governor DeSantis, has become basically a big stamp of approval for any request to increase rates. And that's because one of the first things that Governor DeSantis did was put a term limit on the Office of Public Counsel. And that was an office that's to represent us, we the people. And by putting a term limit on it, they're putting a term limit on someone who has experience in representing on this very complicated issue. They don't have term limits on the lawyers representing the utilities. But then they put a 12-year term limit on someone who's been in office for 13 years, who has been standing up for and successfully being able to fight these rate cases. And since that office flipped, we've been seeing progressively more stamps of approval from the PSC. So the Office of Public Counsel is the lawyer in the Public Service Commission cases who's supposed to represent the people. And we had an OPC, Office of Public Counsel, who had represented in Florida for 13 years, was very successful, knew the ins and outs, had relationships. When DeSantis took office, he passed legislation to limit the amount of time that that person could be in office, which in effect kicked out the experienced person. And they immediately put in an industry pundit who had been a lobbyist for utilities previously. So he's not currently the person in office. The new OPC is okay, but still it's the difference of levels of experience and having a fair playing field. It's like you were talking about new lawyers. It's like putting a new lawyer in a courtroom with Morgan. You know, like someone who's got like 40 some odd years of experience. And that's the weight, the power distribution that they've tried to make. One of the biggest problems, though, with this entire process is that people just don't understand how it works. And that is by design. The rate process is incredibly complex and weedy, and it's so that it's difficult for folks like us to get involved in the process and understand what's going on. So that's one of the big things that we've been doing with our coalition and as Food and Water Watch is demystifying what the bill is and helping people to understand exactly what's going on. So let's talk about what goes into a rate. The base rate is the basic service charge that you pay no matter what. So it is the daily charge for Tampa Electric customers for just being connected to the grid, whether or not you use energy. And that's decided every 2 to 4 years. And that's what's happening right now. Tampa Electric and Duke have both filed new rate cases at the Florida PSC. Tampa Electric customers will see de minimum or a minimum rate increase of $20 a month in January of next year, just on the base rate. And so when they enter into these agreements, it sets schedules for why they're asking for these increases, how much they're asking for, how they're going to break it up over the next few years. So with this rate case, it's from 2025 through 2027. And so Tampa Electric has laid out a list of items for why they need this money and why they need to increase our rates. And it's because the base rate covers all the costs of operations and new investments. So one of the top things is operating and maintenance costs, new infrastructure and existing infrastructure. Executive compensation is considered in this line item as well, and guaranteed profits to shareholders. So Tampa Electric has asked for $590 million to move their headquarters and operating and data centers to Midtown from downtown. And the main reason for this is sea level rise. They said, you know, the sea is rising, so we need to get our offices out of downtown. So then we are paying to move their offices from a problem that they are arguably causing from the continued burning of fossil fuels. Yet when it comes time for my house that's flooding and I need to get out of town, Tico's not paying my bills or paying for my moving costs. And so this is one of the biggest problems with that. There also, there's something, and I don't want to get too weedy, called a return on equity. And this is where the utility can ask for a percentage of their existing equity or the things that they own to be a guaranteed return for their shareholders. So it's like writing in a profit margin, but that we're paying for. So Tampa Electric currently has one of the highest returns on equity in the entire country, and it's currently at 10.25%. They are asking to raise that to 11.5%. Where their headquarters are in Nova Scotia, they are only getting 9%. The national average ranges between 9 and 11%. So they're not even within what the national average is. They're asking above and beyond. And so what that turns into is making their stock very lucrative for stockholders because they can charge higher rates on all of us in order to fund those shares and the returns on those shares. So it's very problematic. There's a few other things in there. They're building a new fracked gas plant at MacDill in order to provide energy for MacDill Air Force Base. They're also wanting to spend $12 million to figure out if they can use carbon capture on the Polk power plant, which is also set to be retired. So it's just another way to get money on this, because the more infrastructure they have, the more equity they have, which means the more money they can ask for and write in. And the thing with this base rate, everybody has to pay it. If you use zero kilowatt hours of energy, you use no energy, you still pay this base rate. So the raise that they're asking for is 50.7% base rate increase. Yeah, you guys aren't seeing anything that I'm putting up here. 50.7% base rate increase. So for folks who use the least energy, they're the ones being the burdened the most with these rate hikes. The second line item is an energy charge. Now, the energy charge is how much energy did I actually use? So this is usually, you'll see it if you use up to 1,000 kilowatt hours, it charges you a certain amount. And this line item is also impacted by the current rate case because what it is doing is determining the cost of producing energy and how they distribute that cost to different customer classes. So there's three basic customer classes. There's residential, there's commercial, and there's industrial. The last time that Tampa Electric did a rate case, they made a back room deal with their industrial customers. It was on the front page of the paper in Sunday's Times that talking about this. They did a back room deal to say, we're going to use a cost study that favors industrial customers and shifts the burden onto residential customers. And so Tampa Electric has also used a method in this rate case to shift the burden of the cost of energy in their service area to residential ratepayers, families that are already struggling under the impacts of large bills. On top of that, there's other things that will impact the bills and the energy charge. Those are things like energy efficiency, environmental compliance, capacity, storm costs. We don't need to go into all of that today. And then the third big line item is fuel charge. This is the cost of the fuel they're burning to create your energy. So it is not how much energy you used, but how much fuel they had to burn to create that energy. And this is the one passed directly to the customers. It's always dependent on the fuel type. So if the fuel they were using was solar, the cost would be zero. Tampa put out a climate action and equity plan last year that showed if we were to transition to solar energy, bills would immediately be cut by over 30%. So this is a big area that we can make the biggest difference. And Tampa Electric has already said, yeah, you can't see it up there, but Tampa Electric has already said that in the next 3 years, the cost of fuel is predicted to go up 35%. Yes, sir. Yes.
That's what you just said.
I'm going to try to adjust this.
Tico, when I was there, 2001, 2005, owned coal companies that sold Tico coal for Big Bend. So normally fuel is a direct pass through and utility says, not my problem. You know, I just have contracts and it's market price. It goes from where I get it to the power plant and it's just a pass through. That is partly correct unless they're the supplier on the other end also. And Tico, when I was there for coal, Big Bend, they supplied their own coal. So then the question is it an arm's length free market contract that's not been overpriced? Okay, now today, I've not been there since 2005. I'm 20 years stale. The owner of Tico is a Canadian company that's big into gas. Okay, so you see where I'm going. Okay, I suspect their parent company is selling them gas under long-term contracts. I would look to see if those are truly arm's length market price contracts. Okay, if they are, then you don't have any reason to bitch, but you should get your hands on those contracts and have a gas industry person tell you if those are basically arm's length market price. If they are, it's function mainly. In other words, they're being above board in whatever the market is, and gas goes up and gas goes down. It's been very volatile for a lot of political reasons. If on the other hand, they tell you it's not market price, it's not arm's length. Well, guess what? Now you go into your rate hearings and you start laying that on the table and watch them kind of look for duck and cover. Okay. So that's all I can tell you there from general principle. Okay.
So, Brooke, I'm hoping that you're going to take us to a place where you could tell us where our empowerment lies. Okay.
Yes. So what you were just discussing, that's all great stuff for the attorneys who are fighting cases at the PSC. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're not talking about that. I'm explaining where these costs are coming from so that then you're empowered when you're talking about them and when you're hopefully showing up at these rate case hearings to talk about them even more. So what Tampa Electric and other utilities have been doing is that they have been adjusting fuel costs back and forth at key times in the process. So there's something that you're allowed to do, which is called a mid-course fuel correction, which is if the cost of fuel has shifted either 10% up or 10% down, then you can come in and ask for more return on your fuel cost to reflect that change in price. Now, this is done annually where the utilities come in and they say, this is how much we predict fuel will be. This is how much it was last year. This is about how much we spent this year. So this is how much we need to charge our customers. But with these mid-course fuel corrections, it allows for incremental shifts throughout the course of the year. So last year, Tampa Electric had 2 mid-course fuel corrections, which makes it where we don't notice as much what's going on because our bill goes up by an extra $20 here, by an extra $15 here, by an extra $12 here. And then what it turns into is average bills went up $62 a month in a 4-year period from 2019 to 2023. This fuel cost volatility Tampa Electric is now using to their benefit, which is that they are asking for a $20 rate increase next year per month, but they also are pairing it with the mid-course fuel correction because the cost of fuel went down this year. So the cost of fuel went down. So when you are getting messages from Tampa Electric, they're saying you're only going to be paying $5 more a month next year because we've rolled back the fuel cost, which by law they have to do. But they also have predicted that the cost of fuel is going up 35% in the next 3 years. So when we're looking at how much the base rate is changing, we have to look at it separate from that fuel cost and understand that fuel cost has only been going up. Even when it dips down, the cost of fuel has been on an upward trajectory. And so that's where they're mitigating a lot of that pushback. So we'll quickly look at a bill. This is your bill. These are the line items that we've been talking about. The daily basic service charge, which is that base rate. Then this says energy charge, which is how much you pay per kilowatt hour of energy used. The next one is fuel charge, and this is how much you're charged for the amount of fuel. So $38.51 of this bill is the cost of the fuel that was burned. And then the other $58.27 is the cost of the fuel produced. And then there's other line items on your bill like storm protection, renewable energy, if you opt into some of those. Now, if you see, this is a bill where someone uses more than 1,000 kilowatt hours, and you'll see that the price goes up by almost a full cent per kilowatt hour. So in the new rate case, Tampa Electric is raising the first 1,000 kilowatt hour price by 12.2%. And then anything above by an 8.6%. So just even the cost of this line item will be going up pretty drastically. Yeah. So as we said, the average TECO bill has increased by 62% in 4 years. TECO is raising rates again in the new year. Here's a breakdown of how those rates are going up. For 1,000 kilowatt hour users, will be going from $143.38. Oh, thank you. It's kind of better. To now we can't see the bottom line item. From 143 to 172. So in the next 3 years, you're looking at a $30 increase. For energy users who use 1,250 kilowatt hours, which is closer to the average TECO customer, it'll be going from 179 to 211. So we're looking at a $30 to $40 increase per month, which is hundreds of dollars a year after we've already increased rates by 62% in the last 4 years. So it'll end up being $1,000 more dollars a year that folks are paying than they were in 2019. So what can we do? Yes. I know I'm having to go through this real quick. So energy burden is an issue, which we're also going to address, which is why I'm getting to this as part of what we need to address as well. There's a large percentage of Hillsborough County residents who are paying well above the energy burden poverty line, which is 6% of your income. So your energy burden is how much of your income goes to your energy bill. If you are paying $6 out of every $100 you make, yay, $6 out of every $100 you make to your energy bill, you are considered to be in energy poverty. A large portion of the area just west of here pays 12% or more of an energy burden. That means over 12% of their income is going to paying an electricity bill on top of a housing crisis and on top of groceries going up and everything else going up. So it has made life unaffordable, and this is a justice issue because people of color, households with seniors, underserved families, renters with low income, all of these folks are less likely to have consistent access to energy because when you're deciding whether to put food on the table, pay for your medicine, or get to work versus paying your electricity bill, sometimes people have to make that tough decision. And we've been talking to people that have in the streets, some of whom have become homeless because of energy bills that have gotten out of hand and made their housing costs unaffordable. Energy efficiency is the quickest, easiest, cheapest way for us to reduce the amount of energy that's being used. Unfortunately, most folks can't get access to that because we have about 35% of Hillsborough residents are renters or in multifamily units, which means that they cannot make the upgrades to their homes without their landlord's consent. And our laws currently do not support making that an incentive for landlords to put new windows in or new HVAC in or insulate. So what can we do? What we need to do is end our reliance on fossil fuels and stop new fossil fuel infrastructure. The fossil fuels are the most volatile aspect of our bill, and the fossil fuel infrastructure is that return on equity line item. The more infrastructure, the more money that can be collected from us. Yep. Yeah. Well, Tico's not our target. Tico is not who we're asking to do it. We need policy changes that change that because if you let me finish, we're going to get to all of this. We're going to get to all this. I'm a pretty dang experienced organizer. I love it. No, I love it. I love it. But I am telling you that we are going to get to that. That's what I'm explaining to you right now. So by transitioning to cheap, clean, renewable energy, we can see a difference. Increasing energy efficiency and using the federal dollars that are available to do that, bringing them to our county to invest in upgrades for all residents, not just owner-occupied residents, and addressing the energy burden. There are states right now that are pushing forward legislation of capping the energy burden at 6%. As Reed's mentioning, we're not there for our state to do something like that right now, but these are goals for us to be pushing toward because how are we going to do this? First is that getting our elected officials involved. Remember how we said the PSC is not accountable to us because it is an appointed body. We did elect the people in our county commission. We do elect our state representatives and senators. So the county has a lot of power to affect our power. And what they can do is pass policies that phase out fossil fuels in county buildings to reduce the amount of money we're needing to pay from our taxpayer dollars. They can invest in energy efficiency and bring federal dollars into our region in order to help with those upgrades through block grants, weatherization, tree cover, things like that, and address the energy burden by working with Tampa Electric. They have a stronger voice in the conversation with Tampa Electric than we do while we're working on the next stage, which is electing candidates who will fight for affordability, both in energy and in housing. We currently are having problems with our county commission. As Ione mentioned, 2 years ago, our county commission flipped from a 5-2 majority to a 4-3 Republican majority. But we have a major problem right now is that not even all of the Democrats on the county commission are looking to support favorable policies that protect residents. And so what we have been working is to gradually build support from the Democratic bloc, because those are the folks who should be working with us on this. And we have successfully been able to get Commissioner Kemp and Commissioner Cohen's support and both of their leadership on this issue. But we are still working to get Commissioner Myers' help and support. And it takes, hearing from folks in her community to know that this is an issue that we care about and that the pressure is there to know that this will make a difference in those lives. In doing this, we then allow ourselves to look at that fourth seat. And what we're looking at this year is Chair Hagan's seat. That he's held for 20 years through, the redistricting and whatnot, but was redistricted by Commissioner Kemp last year to give it a +7 Democratic advantage. And so that this year we can hopefully flip that seat, or at least put the pressure on that seat just to make this a campaign issue. And so we have already talked with his opponents to make this a campaign issue on the campaign trail so that this is discussed more widely. Additionally, this goes beyond just what we're doing local. We organize local to make changes globally. So when we are having all of this attention around what's happening locally, we're getting the attention of our state representatives, our state senators. Those folks are now, as we just saw in this last legislative session, the Democratic caucus is now getting behind good energy policy and pushing back against bad energy policy, which is the first time that the Democratic caucus has done that. And so we're making this an issue then in our state elections so that ultimately we can shift within the next decade the folks representing us in Tallahassee so that we can pass the bold policy initiatives that we need to protect the people of Florida from the utility industry that has been preying on us for quite some time. And by law, they can. You can't blame a tiger for being a tiger. So we just need to build some cages. Yeah. Yes, sir. Walt, right?
Talk about energy costs, and that's understandable. I have a concern that I don't see addressed either in the federal legislature or the state legislature. And that's something that's been going on since probably the last 4 years. And it's called price gouging. Are you dealing with that in any way? I mean, I'm talking about everyday things, food being one of the most important. If you keep up on Facebook with some of the posts that have come up, Publix has been cited as one of the companies that's really raising prices and no justification for it whatsoever. That's hitting the pocketbooks more than anything else. And I think it's time somebody addressed it.
I agree wholeheartedly. I have the capacity to work on the campaign work that I have to work on. And there are folks out there that I know are working on price gouging, but we specifically the Hillsborough Affordable Energy Coalition, which is made up of over 20 community groups and organizations from Sierra Club to League of Women Voters to Central Florida Jobs with Justice, Florida Rising, Progress Village Civic Association, to name a few. We are working very specifically on impacting the energy burden, and we work alongside partners who are working on affordable housing and other areas of concern like insurance so that we can have a collaborative fight in order to impact all of these aspects of life that are economically burdening folks. I can look that up for you.
I think that's out of her bailiwick. That's a little,
I can look into that.
Because somebody needs to do something about it.
what I'd like to, and I got a family call. I had to go out. So I might have missed it. Just this week, Tico proposed something that if I had hair, it would fall off my head, but that's too late for that. They have proposed something that is not justifiable on any basis whatsoever, other than they want to pick winners and losers. They have proposed for a rate change that will shift rate division among commercial and residential from commercial to residential just to make it better for the business community. Well, I was out then. I missed it.
That article was because of the work we're doing.
that,
Lied to the Tampa Bay Times, and we called them out because nobody has been doing this work until recently.
well, thank you.
We called them out, and actually the reporters are pissed that they're saying we have some of the lowest bills in the, they're saying we have some of the lowest, we have the lowest bills in the country, that, you know, we aren't raising rates. It's only going up by $5. All of those are false. Tampa Electric customers paid the third highest bills in the entire country last year. And so, yes, so that we were so happy to have that article cover and that coverage. Emily Mahoney has been a fantastic addition to the Tampa Bay Times, and the Tampa Bay Times has noticed that this is an issue. From last year, they had one climate reporter. They now have 3 climate reporters and a climate and energy reporter, because all of this energy burden stuff is also the same. Climate killing fossil fuels are also the ones impacting our pocketbooks. And it all comes around together. So I know that we had a lot of people on the agenda tonight. Here's a few things that you could do. This, I also have a paper petition, but we're sending messages to county officers to let them know that we need them to push back on the rate hikes. Hillsborough County could also intervene in the rate case since they have 84% of Tampa Electric's customers in their district. And we're also calling Commissioner Gwen Myers. We have a meeting with her and Tampa Electric on Thursday. And we are asking her to fight these rate hikes and to push back. But one of the biggest things, and then I'll get to you, CL. One of the biggest things that is happening that has not happened in 10 years is that there will be an in-district hearing for Tampa Electric customers, and it is a legal proceeding. You will be sworn in, they will get your testimony, and this will be considered during the rate case. It is happening Thursday, June 13th at 10 a.m. Not very accessible, I know, for most folks, but it's right down the street at the Hillsborough Community College Brandon campus. And in preparation for that, allies around the state are putting together a community forum on Tuesday, June 4th to prep people for that process so they can get involved. The reason this in-district meeting is happening is because of organizing. When we went to the county commission last year for the first time, when we first started pushing on this, we said, we need accessibility to this process. Folks can't drive 4.5 hours to Tallahassee for these meetings on a Wednesday morning, on a work day, to speak for 2 minutes. 84% of the customers are in this county. We need to have them hearing us here in this county. And now for the first time in 10 years, we have an in-district rate hearing. And this stuff is being heard. The voices of folks like us ring loud and clear. And that is how we're able to get the support and build the movements that are necessary in order to not only pass bold policy initiatives and affect change in folks' everyday lives, but also to change the entire system of who's representing us by making these issues big enough that they're electable issues and issues that folks have to support regardless of party affiliation if they want to get elected. And on that, I am done. If there's Q&A. Yes. Yeah.
That's fine. You will get it out with an arm little piece, and you've got the county chair.
I know.
Okay, so you get us at least
Brooke, could you put your phone number back up?
3 guesses. I'll be there because this is my profession.
Yes, no, and I would love to talk to you more one-on-one as far as a lot of your
Right.
information. And then here's my contact information as well.
Okay.
Just quickly, who funds you all?
7,
Who funds Food and Water Watch? Food and Water Watch is completely funded by donors. We take no corporate or government money. We are a grassroots organization that branched out of Public Citizen in 2007 to fill a niche that was not being filled. And that is to do true grassroots organizing of building movements and mobilizing regular folks to put pressure on elected officials to give us bold policy changes. And so it's folks like you and me that are funding this. There was a little rumor years ago that Betty White was one of our major funders. And we have close relationships with some celebrities who offer their status, like Mark Ruffalo and Jane Fonda, who also help to support Amy Goodman on Democracy Now!, who help to promote our organization as well because they're happy with the work we're doing. Oh my goodness. Can I send that to you? Yes. Yeah, yeah. If you Google, and if you guys want to, call me, text me. I will answer any questions you have. I'm more accessible via phone than email. But if you guys have any questions or any thoughts about this or ways to get involved, it would be wonderful to hear back from you. Okay. That's my cell phone. Yeah. You can text me. Yes. And I like that. Text me. Thank you guys. Thank you. We did. Thank you so much. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.
Going fast too.
Am I taking this back
No,
to you?
she is.
There you are.
Thank you, guys.
Officer's report.
The minutes were approved at the board meeting, and I'll pass this over to the treasurer.
Okay, I told you 60 seconds.
Our, I don't know, I'm losing my voice. Our balance today is $1,713.81. I don't know what more I can add or subtract.
Okay. All right. Well, the old business, did we ever give a summary to the membership of, remember we in the board meeting, we went over the P&L and the picnic? I
Just
think,
happen to have that here.
I think they deserve to hear it.
The picnic cost for us, the food that was purchased, I'm sorry, $341.13. And we took in at the picnic from the auctions and donations, $335. So we were behind by about $6. We almost broke even. Yeah, I was going to do the same thing. So we kind of called it break even, but
And as far as I'm concerned, that's a success. I think last year Donna Fore commented, we had a similar situation last year, and Donna correctly said at the time, that's a win. And I agree. And I assume Donna still agrees as President X honoraria or whatever the title is. And that's a win. So I know our treasurer doesn't look at it that way, but that's a win, Walt. Take it. New business, I already covered that one. And what she may not remember, because there's a lot for her to remember. There's already a very good relationship between this club and the Southeast Hillsborough Women's Club. That's Jennifer Moore and Tracy Korn and Liz Congero, who was almost, Yep, and Gwen, who's on this call. And we have worked together, and we have worked with, particularly with Rudina. Sorry, I'm trying not to cough. And we do a lot together in campaign seasons. And we did a lot together at Bloomingdale Library, 2 campaigns in a row. This will be the 3rd. And it's a good relationship, and we like each other. And Susan Smith was very happy when I copied her in. That news is in our agenda. And I shared it with Susan Smith, and she was quite happy that we took the initiative. And I encouraged her to use this joint venture again as an incentive and as an example for the rest of the DEC to do this, because we have to join up. We didn't have enough people last time to cover all the early voting sites. And even where we did, particularly, we're a small club, and Southeast Women's Hillsborough Club is much smaller than the larger women's club. And but between the two of us, 2 small clubs did a bang up job, and we covered Bloomingdale. And now I'm going to ask Ione to take this and run with it, because, I'm proud of what the 2 of us did. And I'm kind of elbowing her, take this and run with it with incentivizing the rest of the county.
Thank you, Reed. I appreciate you taking the initiative of being out in front. We are encouraging all clubs and caucuses to adopt. We will adopt something like 16 early vote sites in the end. So now's the time to be checking out your tent, and making sure you've got chairs and a table. And we probably will have a contest again to see who's the best decorated. So be thinking about that. That makes it a little bit fun. And so again, I appreciate the work that you do. And I think it's all about collaboration. And about collaboration, I would like to say again, I said it last night at the steering committee. Everybody's anxious to hear the judicial candidates. But if you think about it, they're not supposed to come to your meeting unless every single judicial candidate is invited. So think about that. We have something like 23, 24 clubs and caucuses. And if the Republican Party has as many, that means every judicial candidate is going to be invited to 46 different forums. So I think that's another great opportunity to collaborate with each other, have a bigger audience. And I have judicial questions that I have collected by doing a lot of good research. There are questions you can ask judicial candidates and questions you can't. So I have something like 100 of them, and you can choose the ones you want to ask. And but I would encourage you to collaborate on that effort as well, to hold joint forums with other clubs and caucuses. So thank you for leading the way on getting out the vote and early voting. Thank you.
All right. I rushed out without printing out my own agenda. There's something big going on tomorrow down at the BOCC. They have an agenda discussion at 10, and they are proposing that the county change its investment policy to allow it to invest in Israel bonds. And I am wearing my old managing director hat from my JP Morgan Chase days. And there's a few other people that are also adding their particular talents. And we are going to be down there tomorrow at 10 a.m. And we're going to give them our thoughts on the wisdom of that. And our emphasis is not just going to be to try to convince them to be moral people and not do it, because that's a waste of our breath. There are financial aspects that are one of my skill sets that I'm going to be pointing out to them. They need to consider if they want to make sure this is a prudent financial decision. And I can assure you, they have not. Thank you. Is there anything else? Anybody else has? Regina has.
Sorry, can you give us the details on it tomorrow? What time?
It's tomorrow. It starts at 9. There's a 9 to 10 hour that's kind of a general discussion. But then at 10, they specifically talk about agenda items, and the agenda item is specifically to change the investment policy of the county of Hillsborough to allow it to invest in Israel bonds. So I've been
Anybody is in that? Or do we have to-
Yeah.
well, there's limitations on space, and you can't speak unless you've already signed up.
Okay.
That one is come and gone. I suspect that what was normally a 3-minute slot is going to be cut to 2.
Okay.
And you may not even be able to physically get in because there's only so much space, but it is broadcast live and you can participate by watching it on TV. Now, I don't know the particulars of that because I'm always there myself in
Is there
person.
a Zoom link?
I know you can somehow get to that live. I don't know how Ion would know more about that than I would.
It's community
Here,
TV, right?
here, here.
You go on the website, it's got the
It-
link to the community.
The county website?
Yes.
Okay, so the answer is there's a link on the county website for community TV, and they will be broadcasting this meeting live. And 9 to 10, I have no idea what's going to go on. I don't care. I'll be there by 9, but those of us, the very few of us that are interested in this, will be there at 10.
I want to change the topic here. I came prepared for an hour presentation this evening.
Let's do it. I got 4 kicking out.
This is all good. This is all fascinating stuff. Memorial Day, the 27th, we're going to have an event in Plant City. We invite you to attend to honor those who have served in the past and have given their ultimate sacrifice. It'll be at 11 o'clock at the Veterans Park or Courier Field. I did bring my notary for any of those who want to get their qualifying papers signed tonight. I can help you do that. Well, I'll explain it. The county party dissolves in November. It reconstitutes itself in December from those people who have qualified to be precinct captains, and they get to choose who the officers are and who the 24 state representatives are going to be under the new one man, one vote rule. So it's an important organizational thing. And you do this by qualifying in this primary season. As a precinct committee, man or woman in your precinct, often it is uncontested, but if there are two people in your precinct, you will wind up on the ballot. But so it's an important organizational event every 4 years.
It's qualification hard.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. We all get decertified in November, so we, I just said that. Yeah, so we're all good. Yeah. So we just all start all over again. This is a great evening. I thank you for coming because we definitely want to have Brooke come to Plant City, talk about that. We will be having a community picnic and candidate forum on the 27th of July at Snowden Park. You'll hear more about that.
Donna Ford wants to speak. There's another event, candidate forum. That I
With me, Reed, I don't know. It's on the website though.
didn't.
Red, white and blue barbecue.
Yeah, it's July 26th or something. Yeah, and it's a fundraiser as well as a candidate meet and greet. Does anybody know more than that?
It's the red, white and blue barbecue and it's put on by Don Scott's group and another group, two groups.
It's on our website.
Yes, once again, Chris Radulich is an excellent vice president and especially making sure that all what's going on in the DEC, he's got it on our website. He might have missed one or two things, but I don't have the time to make sure it's there because I do my own thing too. And he's got all this stuff on our website. So you want to learn what's going on? Our website is not bad. DEC to mobilize, you got to sign up for stuff and it doesn't usually explain as much what's going on with each event. When Chris puts it on our website, all the details are there. Whatever anybody gives him that's sponsoring the event, he puts it on our website. Okay. All right. Now we're going to stay here. Anybody who, yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned the event tomorrow with the county commission.
Yeah.
There is a letter that can be sent to the county commissioners. Is there any way to get that to people who are interested in sending messages? Yeah, but there was a standard letter that somebody drew up. I don't know if that's available.
What's a succinct message?
Oh, no.
Vote no on rate hikes.
Well, that's not yet, but he's talking about the Israel ones.
Oh, the Israel one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Answer is yes, Walt, there is. I don't have it with me here. It's on my desktop at home. I can get it to you when I get home tonight.
I have it. I just wanted to know if others were able to get it.
You know who's organizing that, so that's the person you need to ask.
Yes. Did you want to? Somebody signed up. Okay. Are we done reading?
I believe we're done outside of after we officially adjourn. Anybody who wants to get recertified can do that right here, right now. Okay? All right, thank you all. We're always a little chaotic, but that doesn't mean we're boring. Yeah, we're Democrats, right? Thank you, Zoom land. We appreciate your participation. Bye now.